Hi, it's MJ. And I had a few minutes between sessions today, and I decided to do a question chat. And there's one thing that I've been, and not just me, I think a lot of people have been curious about, is the MAGA people and their literally grasp on Epstein. And the reason Epstein means such a big deal is that for most MAGA people, they got drawn into a rabbit hole because they were thinking that children were being harmed, in effect, pedophilia. And in the case of Epstein, yes, he was harming children. Now, this hasn't gone as well as Trump would have expected. He's telling his people to ignore this, that there's no there. He's trying to move it along. But some of his people are sort of, yeah, they'll say, yeah, there's nothing. And then all of a sudden, no, we need to know. So there's a lot of backpedaling here from his people. They're not quite sure which direction to go in. So I thought that was sort of significant because Epstein is really just sort of a banner of what MAGA sort of is against. And for them to just sort of leave this at Trump's command would be strange. So I decided to do a question on this. And what I asked was, will MAGA believe Trump about Epstein being no there? And let's take a look at the chart. We've got an ascendant at 7 degrees, which is sort of developed, so it's not very early in the game where it may not come to fruition at some point. And we have a moon that's very, very early. It's at 0-1, so this really has quite a bit to play out still. It's not something that's going to turn over in a dime. Now, moon is in the first house. And the first house here is indicating, in effect, Trump. Because I'm asking the question on Trump, so it's on Trump. Now, I'm not asking as myself, I'm asking as, in effect, on Trump being able to control his people. So the moon here is saying, does he have control over his people? In effect, can he tell them to ignore this, and will they ignore it? So let's take a look at where this path takes us. So the first angle that the moon, and what we do is in a question chart, we do it for the time of the question, time and date, and the location that the question is asked. And then we take each angle that the moon makes up until the time it leaves the sign. And then, depending on how you ask the question, you're looking at the type of angle to determine whether it's a yes or no to the question. Now, I usually try and ask questions that are yes and no, but sometimes you can ask more diverse questions. But I find they're harder to answer, and sometimes they're not as clear. So the first angles that the moon make are to Saturn and to Neptune. It's a square, so it's a negative connotation. And what this is indicating is that there's quite a bit packed in here. First of all, this is the house of endings, and it's saying, no, this is not the ending. But it's also, Neptune here is saying, this is an illusion that Trump actually created, in effect, to get his people wound up. And what's happening is with Saturn is information is being restricted. It's not being given out. So we have this, and again, in the house of endings, but it's not an ending. So where does it move to next? Well, it moves up to Mercury, and it makes an inconjunct. Now, inconjunct is a break and adjust, which is a negative angle. It's a difficult one. Mercury is communication. In this case, it's also ruling the 7th house of the public. So what's the public perception here? They're not getting all the information. Now, next, what we have is Moon moves on to make an angle to Venus next, which is at 6 degrees. Okay, Mercury was at 5. So now we move to the 6 degrees, and this is an opposition. In this case, Venus, we've got this opposing, and that is, when we look at what Venus rules, it's the 6th house and it's the 11th house. So in effect, our community and our workers, and in effect, public perception, that's where Venus is. So public perception here, again, is saying opposition to this. No, there's arguments back. No, that's not right. There's more to this. So this is not going away easily. Now, after Venus, what we have is it moves to 12. So it goes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it now hits an opposition to Jupiter. Jupiter, again, and by the way, both Mercury and Jupiter were in the 8th house, house of sex. Okay? Jupiter rules the 1st house, which would be Trump. We now have actual overt opposition to what Trump is saying. So you may see the tide start to turn a bit here. Now that's going to be maybe in about 11 days or 11 weeks. But you're going to see that people are going to be more, no, you're wrong. They're really going to be pushing back against what Trump is saying here. Now, next after Trump, what we have is Moon moves on to make an inconjunct, again, difficult angle, with the Sun. It's a break and adjust. The Sun rules the 9th house, which is involved with justice. And in effect, it's saying, where's the justice here? Okay? No justice. We're not seeing the results. So in effect, this would be a no. Now, next, Moon is moving along, and it's going along 13, 14, 15, up to 29, 18, which is Mars. And that would actually be a trine here. And that would be a yes answer, that his people would believe him, except, that by the time the Moon moves up to the end of the sign, Mars has moved out into the next sign. So the Moon is never able to make that angle, which would have said, yes, his people would believe him. So where are we? At the Sun is the last angle. Now, this is pointing at the evidence, in effect, in a legal situation, and it's saying, no, we don't believe you. Now, that's going to be, again, the degree from where the Moon starts to where the Sun is. There's 12 degrees of difference. Sorry, I think I said 11 before. 12 degrees, so that's 12 days, 12 weeks, maybe 12 months. But you're going to see MAGA turning here on this one matter. They're not going to believe him. Now, it may be able to be slipped away, but it is sort of important that Trump is sort of fraying in his ability to control MAGA. So they're not believing what he's saying. That's important. Now, I hope you enjoyed this and have a great evening.